I think we can agree that entrepreneurship is an amazing gift. And I don't know about you, but I had very clear plans. And obviously, the overarching plan was to create freedom. I lived in Ireland at the time. My parents were not getting any younger. I wanted to travel to see them, more often for much longer and also travel everywhere, right? Well, but here is my question to you. When you first started, did you ever anticipate what you were getting yourself into?
No.
Like, honestly,
What a really good question.
right?
Wasn't expecting that one.
I definitely did not. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful. I'm grateful I'm on this journey. I'm grateful for this journey to be the biggest, the most rewarding, the most shocking
Mm,
school of personal transformation. However, not everything is that bright.
mm,
Definitely not everything that I was thinking about when I got started. So I think this is the overarching topic for this episode about that gap where you want to head, where you think you're heading, and what is actually happening,
mm.
and how to bridge that gap. And welcome to the new episode from Grind to Grace. I'm Edita, and this is the show for the alternative entrepreneur, the entrepreneur ready to flip the script, challenge the norms, and choose freedom first. When freedom is not a destination, when freedom is the path. Because when you stop grinding for freedom and start creating a business that feels like freedom in the process, success just tags along. So that's the mission. That is the mission for yourself, for your children, and for humanity. And that is what I explore on this podcast. What I explore is how to step into that place of freedom and run your business from there. And that is what I ask my guests. And today I have another one, another amazing, all refreshed and rested after nice travels. Heather Vincent with me. And I know she knows the thing about the gap between what you thought it was gonna be and what it actually is. So without further ado, I want to welcome you, Heather. Thank you very much for being with me.
Thank you. It's my pleasure, and like you say, I'm very relaxed. I'm nicely tanned, and I've just come back from holiday, so I'm ready for this. I've done lots of self-reflection on holiday as well.
I know, right? We can actually dive into maybe in a while about what happens during holidays
Yeah.
in terms of all the ideas and I don't know, or after,
Mm,
but maybe let's start with you giving a quick introduction for the context,
okay.
and then we'll get into the gap.
Well, I'll try and make it a very quick introduction. It was interesting because you mentioned alternative, and I've always felt I was alternative. I had an alternative way of thinking. And even from the time that I was told you have to go and get a job, well, even before that, from the age of about 13, I had that entrepreneurial mindset. But I was never one of those kids that messed around at school or anything like that. I was very studious and got on with things. I kind of just fitted in, but I knew I didn't need to fit in. I didn't want to fit in. But you slowly get molded into this box of going off and studying, going to uni, getting a job, getting a career. or you can't change this, you can't change that. But always, I've kind of, I've run 4 businesses. This is my 4th business. And I've flitted between running a business because I wanted the freedom, because I knew I could do things differently. I hated corporate life. I didn't like being told what to do, all that kind of thing. Then I think, oh no, I need to go and get a job again. So I'd use that job really as a stepping stone to build up my qualifications again, get some more experience, and I go back and run a business. And everything I've done, I've never looked back and regretted. It's always been for myself, for my freedom, for my family. And you know, it's given me such a sort of a learning platform to move forward to the next one. It's almost like the past is meant to be. So again, there's no regrets at all with what I've done. So what I'm doing now is a business that I've been running since 2016, but it's kind of pivoted along the way as things do. What started out with I didn't even know it was a virtual assistant business. I kind of just fell into it only because I'd come out of a really, really difficult corporate job again, where I just left. I was an office manager, really didn't enjoy it at all. And I just thought, what can I do from home? I need to do something. So it was kind of like a panic, but I fell into it. I didn't do any marketing. I just got clients through word of mouth, and it just grew from there. But my brain knew I was here to do more. My qualifications told me I was here to do more. I always was one step ahead. So it kind of evolved into online business management, where again, I went and got a qualification, working with clients at a higher level strategically. And now it's evolved now into a business where I kind of see myself as just the strategic ally with a twist. So I don't do traditional, I don't do kind of tick boxes. I don't follow the norm of how people think strategy should be. I'm more very much about connecting human and what the vision is for the business. So that's where I am at the moment. I've moved away from working with retainer clients, and I'm working more on one-to-one, but thinking about bringing in maybe a group program at some point, but that's to be decided. So I feel like I'm always pivoting, but always thinking of new things. But again, ultimately, it's for my freedom to enable me to do what I can't do what I want to do in life. And that's not being selfish. I basically wouldn't have a business.
And what does freedom mean to you?
Oh my goodness. Autonomy, being able to make my own decisions, working on my own terms. So that's one of the reasons why I moved away from retainer type clients, because I felt almost like an employee, because you're working so many hours a month for them. I felt like freedom to me has been non-restricted. So being able to go, so for example, I could start work at 7 in the morning if I wanted to. I could work at 8 o'clock in the evening if I wanted to. But that allows me things, if I wanted to go to the gym in the day, which is really important to me, my health and fitness, then I can go and do that. I can go and walk the dog in the middle of the day. Freedom to me is not being, holding to someone else's hole, if that makes sense. It's like I don't fit into that pigeonhole.
Yeah, and is it easy for you to actually embrace that freedom? And this is why I'm asking. So many of us, and when I was talking about, what we anticipated when we got started, it sounds very good on paper, freedom to travel, freedom to work when we choose. But what I found myself, okay, so there were some real life restrictions, like, small daughter and, things like that. But even when sometimes I was not involved a lot at home, I still didn't necessarily sort of like allow myself to just go and do and whatever. And you know what I ended up in the kind of situation, I remember suddenly neighbors took my daughter to the beach. We still lived in Ireland, and they took and on Sunday, right? And suddenly on Sunday, instead of, doing all the mom's things at home, suddenly I'm like, oh, so I have a Sunday all to myself. Oh, so what am I gonna do? I don't know what I'm gonna do anymore. And okay, let me go for a walk alone, because all my walks used to just be with my daughter, chasing her around. And I was like, oh my God, not another walk. But now, oh, a walk, what a good idea. And I remember I left the house, I went to the first crossroad, and I stood at a crossroad, and I'm like, in which direction will I go? Which direction? And my body moved in this first direction. I'm like, oh, no, no, no. I walked that there so many times. Other next direction. No, 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 no. Then I eventually chose, but I stood there for a while. I didn't even know in which direction to even go. I didn't know what I liked anymore. I was so sick of everything, you
Mm,
know?
mm.
And so basically, I didn't even know what that freedom looked like anymore at some point,
Wow.
you
Mm,
know?
mm.
So how do you decide, or is it easy for you to step away from your business and just decide to go walk the dog instead of maybe let me get another client or something like that?
I think because I've been through it, so I didn't set. So although my businesses have been working around my family as they've grown up, that was the whole purpose. I wanted to be at home, so there was an element of freedom. But like you say, you've always got the small children around, and let's make no bones about it, they've always come first. That's my whole ethos around doing it. They're older now. They don't need me. They're at home, but they're older, and I got to the point, probably toward the middle of maybe this time last year, actually, where I had taken on more and more and more and more. And I had 3 or 4 retainer clients, and one of them was a really big retainer as well. Don't get me wrong, I was earning a lot of money. It paid for things, it allowed us to do things. But you get to the point where you think, hold on a minute, all you're doing is working. And, I was working weekends. Not that it wasn't like the clients almost expected. What it was is obviously you're working with them during the week because that's when they're working. But then at the weekend you had to work on your own business. You've got to still do your own stuff. So it's not like you're just walking away from a 9 to 5 job. You then have your own business to market and, think about the future and plan and all that kind of thing. So that took priority at the weekend. So, and I thought there was no balance. So I thought to myself, there's got to be something else. There's got to be something more to do than this. This is not, I thought this is what I wanted, but I actually didn't want at all. So I went through a bit of, I suppose I've always been quite spiritual. I've come from a spiritual background, but I kind of had a bit of an epiphany really, where I just thought, God, there's something needs to be changed. And I contacted an old friend of mine who was in that realm, and we did a lot of work together, which really, really helped open up a lot for me. And I was sort of learning about human design. I'd done that for the last few years, but just dabbled in it. And started looking at that a little bit more as well, alongside the sort of spirituality. And I kind of slowly came to the conclusion that I wasn't meant to be doing this. I'm not meant to be busy, 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 even though I thought I was. So, and eventually it was been a gradual thing for me, but the more you do it, you just do a gradual drop off, and you just keep walking away and walking away. And it's the next thing, it's just peeling back the layers, really going. It's almost like I peeled back everything to then start again and
Mm,
just evolve. Does that make sense? I feel like
yeah.
I've been the last 6 to 8 months, I feel like a bit of a caterpillar, really, just starting to come out of its, shell and move into being a butterfly again, but with that freedom. So if you just liken that butterfly just flying away, so that's how I vision it. So yeah, so for me, that freedom element has come through trial and error and getting really burnt out to the point where I felt I couldn't even take some time off. So yeah, you kind of just, and then you realize it's not the be all and end all. You know, abundance means a huge amount of stuff. It's not just money. It's about what it means to you. It's a freedom's abundance in my mind.
Well, abundance and doesn't equal money at all.
No,
Like
but there's a lot of people who
money
still
is
think
part,
that.
can be part of abundance,
Mm, mm,
right? If
mm,
that's how you choose to
mm,
channel the energy, I
mm.
guess, right? And what you were telling reminded me of that quote, and I can't remember who said it. Was it Buddha or someone else who said, meditate 20 minutes every day. If you don't have time, meditate 1 hour.
Oh.
or, or too busy, meditate
Well,
for one
this
hour.
is it. You know, when I started going on my journey with my friend last year, you know, part of it was to really grind and protect and all that kind of thing, because I was doing none of that. I didn't really understand it. And even then I didn't have the time. And I thought this is ridiculous because I can pick up so many different energies from people. You know, you're spending a lot of time with people on calls. I mean, I could walk into the local shop and pick up people's energy. So I needed to learn how to ground myself and be comfortable doing that, even if it was, I only say just 5 minutes a day. You know, you can fit that in, but at the time I didn't think I could, and that was wrong. So really, that's why I've come out the other side in a way that it's just I'm not going back to that.
Yeah, so you talk about entrepreneurs getting somewhere, creating some results, but not being where they see themselves, they want to be, and they are stuck in some sort of a like trying to get there, but feeling maybe trapped,
Exactly.
right?
Bit like your
Yes.
crossroads analogy, really, that you
Right. So what happens? What do you think? And I think this is the whole freaking industry in
mm,
entrepreneurship.
mm,
This whole crowd, I don't know, is the whole sort of target market, right? Of
mm,
this is a pattern, right?
mm, mm. I see it all the time. And I'm in a lot of groups with other women who are feeling like that. And yeah, I think it must happen to everyone, I think. But you've got to find a way through it and how you
Maybe
find,
different reasons, I don't
yeah,
know,
yeah,
but
exactly.
yeah, different life circumstances or whatever that is. And I'm especially analyzing one of them right now as we speak. I'm
Mm.
actually cooking something, but
Mm. Good.
but and it's very exciting, but also a little scary. But
Yeah.
I'll be, I don't know, I'm gonna do a big launch or anything, but it's coming out bit by bit, maybe with
The
placeholder.
launch thing is another thing that gets me. That's a very hustly thing.
I don't use the word launch
No, I hate the word.
generally.
I'm taught how to do launches, and there's another way around it.
Only when I speak to people for them to sort of, but it sounds so heavy. I never got, it always made me feel that way. But basically, I'm starting something and I'm getting somewhere with this new thing.
Mm.
But well, kind of new, but not like you'll see. Anyway, so
I shall
yeah,
look forward to
kind of,
it.
but it feeds into this whole top theme of freedom and stuff like that. But maybe I'm getting into more specifics about what it is and
Mm.
maybe a more specific target market, specifically women who are sort of like are in that trap,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
uh, from the from the angle of, you mentioned autonomy, but it's more like geared towards like financial autonomy,
Mm.
and being
Mm.
in,
Mm.
under their own control, not someone
That
else's.
that's the other thing, isn't it? It's yeah, it you don't want to rely on other people for money or income. And that I think that's where we're still evolving, because there's that concept you've got to work harder and longer to bring in more money. But actually, for me, it's about stripping it right back and coming out,
Totally,
really going deep.
totally.
It's an inner alignment. It's finding out what
It's
works for
both.
you and how you work.
Yeah, in my world, so you know that I'm, you know, my gig is marketing, selling, client acquisition and copywriting, those kind of things.
Which some would
So,
say is quite a
so it's
masculine
both
type.
the strategies and people,
Yeah.
there is this new wave of people saying that you don't need another strategy. And my answer to that is, well, you might.
Mm, mm.
Well, you might. If your strategy is misaligned with universal laws, you do need another
Exactly.
strategy,
Yeah. And that's the thing. Strategy to me is quite a masculine word, but it conjures up all sorts of things for
which
different.
is why I call it model in my case.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I play a lot with words for different things because,
Yeah.
you know, people do need a strategy, and that's what I do, but it's not how they think or they should have a strategy for a lot of people.
Yeah,
And it
because
depends
let's
on
be
each
honest,
person.
right? Just that, let's be honest, business is a 3D world's thing,
Mm,
isn't it?
mm,
Like if you just want to be free and happy and fulfilled and whole and whatever, go to a monastery, go join the Tibet monks and just be there.
mm,
Well, we are actually running a business and it doesn't exist in the universe per se, but it
mm,
does exist in 3D world. So guess what? We do need strategies. And guess what? I've analyzed so many strategies because of my professional interest and need. And most strategies are so far away from universal law. So of course, if you are just depending on those,
mm, mm,
you of course you need another strategy.
mm, mm. Exactly.
And that actually corresponds to what you are saying. It's stripping away, which is very surprising to people. It's not adding, it's stripping things away, stripping things that are man-made, that deviated from universal laws. And now you
And
are
conditioning as well. That's the big part.
conditioning, delivering way less value to the marketplace than you could
Mm,
if
mm.
you aligned your
Yeah,
methods with nature and so on, so on. Long
exactly.
story,
Yeah.
basically,
And
but
there is a lot of element of that. But like you say, we are still in a 3D world. And I'm just wondering, because there's a lot of talk about moving to the 5D and all that kind of thing, whether that the AI element is going to push us into that. Who knows? I know we're not here to talk about AI, but it's still we are on a big transition at the moment, I feel.
I think so.
Many of
Mm,
us. And if you don't start, in my mind, I say stripping away the layers and all that conditioning and how we should do it and how this is way the old school of doing it. I mean, I was talking to somebody on Tuesday night. I was at a local group. We don't call it networking because it isn't networking, it's collaboration, supporting and helping each other. But this poor woman, she works for a charity, and she's quite high up, but she's got a new director that's come in, and he's talking about, oh, you've got to do a SWOT analysis, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. And it's like, oh God, do we really, is that, it's so old school. I mean, I remember doing SWOT analysis when I was 18, 19 at university.
mm,
There is an
mm.
element, you still got to have a business acumen. There's still stuff you've got to do. You still got to plan, you still got to prepare, but do you really need to do a SWOT analysis?
Oh my God, I know someone who is here in Lithuania. She's studying psychology now. Um, for the degree alone, and imagine the pain. So she's like, we talk with her about woo things and spirituality and whatever. And I asked, and I'm like, I used to be interested in psychology, and then
Mm,
things happen, and I'm like, oh my God, thanks God I'm not in there
mm.
in that, because it's so limited. And I was like, and I was asking her, so did psychology change at all? Has it changed, at all, considering where the world is going? And she was like, oh my God, no.
Oh
I'm
gosh.
suffering. And she's only doing, but imagine the tragedy. So she's studying it just for the degree so that she can do something in the field of spirituality.
Oh, okay.
Because otherwise, like she needs a paper to,
Yeah.
you know,
Mm.
it's
And
ridiculous.
that's the other thing, really, the need to feel that you've got to validate yourself with a piece of paper.
So
Um,
she's not doing it for herself
she's doing
as,
it because of
as
the role she
such,
wants
just
to
to
go
have
into.
this official,
Yeah.
like get permission to do the
Mm,
thing that she wants to
mm,
actually do,
mm,
so it's,
mm.
so
Um,
anyway, so that gap, right?
yeah.
What are the common sort of like trends or reasons why people end up, all of them? I don't know, like, can we say 100% of entrepreneurs end up in that trap, in that gap between where they thought they would be and where they actually are, and learn from there and then come out, or many don't, whatever. What are the common reasons?
Interesting, because I've worked with all sorts of different personalities, actually. I I think everybody will go through that, but it's depends on, I think, your personality and how you're brought up, all that kind of thing as well. There is a lot of that around it. And also, I'm going to bring in the neurodiverse thing as well, because I think if you're neurodiverse, particularly, you're more prone to burnout, I guess, taking on more and more and more, doing more and more and more, and that can have an impact. So there's lots of different reasons why people will get to that point, but um, you will reach that point at some, because you can't keep adding more and more and more on. We can keep learning and keep planning and keep doing more, but ultimately, where's it getting you? So you get to that point where you think, well, I've done this, but I'm still stuck. And then you wonder I wonder if it's because you put so much effort into it. And I see this with entrepreneurs as well that I work with. They're so passionate about what they do. They want to help other people, which is fantastic, but they put so much energy into their offers and what they want, and what they can do, that by the time it goes out there, they're almost like flatlined, if that makes sense. So they're not really feeling, the energy's not there. Um,
Mm-hmm.
how do we stop this sort of constant thinking and worrying and push, push, push? And then when you put it out there, you're kind of like, you haven't really got that energy to really move forward with it. And then you get stuck again. And it feels like a never ending cycle. Does
I
that make
think,
sense?
it does. So I'm trying to unpack, as I'm listening to you, to unpack the actual reasons. And it's easy to say, and we do say, well, don't do this, stop doing this, stop doing that. But I think you only realize that you're in that place when you arrive, when you
Yeah.
can't, when you realize I am freaking stuck
Mm,
and I don't know how I got here.
yeah. And I've tried
I
this,
think
I've tried
all
that.
along the
Yeah.
person was not even aware
Mm,
of what was
yes.
happening.
No, because
Because
they're so stuck in it. Yeah. Yeah.
and there's that, and it kind of compounds. I remember the very first coaching program that I was in, and the one coach that was telling, teaching, coaching us, right? Coaching us. And so first of all, he was a man, but who thought about, like, you are new, you have no idea, right?
Mm,
You have no idea. So you listen and
mm.
you do what they say. And I
Yeah.
remember he was saying, guys, for the first 2 years, I disappeared. I I disappeared. I stopped meeting with friends. I stopped getting involved in family stuff. If I needed to get something done in my business, I was always listening to the training. Everybody, I used to listen to all sorts of trainings in the car, and everyone in the car with me used to be annoyed, you know, listening to those trainings that I was playing, but I was doing it anyway. So you need to brace for this. And I mean, like when you are fresh and you have no clue, you listen.
You do. And you follow it because you think that's the
Yeah,
way you're supposed to do it. Um, oh, it
right?
makes
And
me
he was a
cringe.
man. He didn't have a family at the time. Now he does, as far as I know. But you listen.
Mm,
Then running ads, like we were running ads as part of that program, and I totally I love ads. I'm not
mm,
running them. I haven't run any ads for quite a while now, but it's one of the tools, right? And now that I'm a copywriter, and I think back to how they were teaching us to do ads, they had no freaking clue. And I want to, like, they had no clue. We literally were losing money because we were running ads based on advice from people who had no clue about copywriting.
mm,
But I didn't know that then,
mm, mm, mm. I know.
right?
And that's how the confusion starts to set in. And the more you do that, because we all get, there's always something, a nice shiny object to buy into, isn't there? Oh, that looks exciting. And you start on the program, you bought it, so you need to be involved. And I'd see that a lot, and it confuses you even more because then you're getting taught something different to what somebody else has taught you or what you're being told. And I think we were in information overload. That is probably part of the problem. Um, and you keep, people that I work with tend to they're very visionary. So they've got so many ideas going through them that they want to put this off right, that off right, that off right. And it just becomes messy. And then they don't give it time, they don't plan it, and there's no space. So for me, I'm all about the space and the calm and sitting back really just to do it properly. Um, and they just keep adding stuff on and they just say, oh, it's not working, it's not working. They chop and change their mind, they bring something else in, and they just end up getting they're overloaded then. And that's why they get to that point where they think, what else can I do? I need to get a job. I hear that
Mhm.
quite a lot as well. I need to go and get a job. This business isn't working. So it's a shame because that's not
Mm.
what they started. That they started their business essentially really for, go back to that word, freedom. This is what a lot of people do. And because they're so passionate about their subject and they want to help people, and they become so sort of ingrained in reading stuff and joining this and joining that and being told what to do, that actually they forget their real purpose of running the business. And that's what I feel you've got to strip back to.
Yes. And first of all, so we mentioned that, there's lack of awareness of that happening. And then, right? And I like, so I'm curious, what happens? Or how do people respond to the advice to create space, to stop doing things, to strip things away?
They've got to be ready to work with me, I'll be honest, because I'm not one of these people that, I don't call myself a coach or anything, but I'm not one of these people that are just going to go along with everything, because I wouldn't be doing my job properly, because I've lived through it and I can see, I'm very, very intuitive as to what's going on as well. So I can understand and see where the problems are. Um, so what I tend to do with these people is they've got to be ready to work with me. So we'll have the free call. We've got to be aligned to work together. There's no question about that. If they're one of these people that are going to be hustle, push, I want this done, I want that done, we're not going to be able to work together. That's
Mhm.
just not going to happen. But if they're ready and they really are at the point where they just don't know what to do, and some of these people have got freelancers working with them, they've got a team, you know, all that kind of thing they're managing as well. For me, I start, we look at the bigger picture first. I see it as a holistic view, and then we start to hone in on the one, we pick one area, or I will share where I think the one area that needs to be worked on, and then we look at that first. And I will always be honest. I'm never one of these people that sugarcoat things. It's kind of like, well, if a team member's not putting their weight, then they need to go. You know, that's kind of the way it works. You need to bring, in my mind, bringing in fresh blood as well helps a business to revamp itself. If you work with a team, sometimes an old team is a bit stale. If you bring in some new freelancers, it can kind of really push things forward again for them, and bring in some fresh ideas. So yeah, it's as I said, if they're not willing to listen, then they're not aligned for me. Got to be willing to listen, put in the work, and not keep pushing, because I will always try and pull them back again, you know.
And at what point, what is happening for them to start listening or to be in that place where they are listening? Is it more about their personality traits or beliefs and mindsets? Or is it more about, you know what, I have to just admit I'm burned out and
I
this is
think
my
there's an element of everything you've said there.
Mhm.
There's definitely a little bit of mindset. So, you know, I see myself as a jack of all trades when I'm working with business owners, because you've got to understand the whole aspect. It's not just the business, it's, you know, it's their business, it's them as well. So it's about working through that element. A lot of it can be, you know, money issues, money mindset issues, you know, where they feel they can't charge a certain amount for what they do, when actual fact they don't see themselves as being that expert. They're kind of lacking, well, confidence issues. You get to that point where you don't trust your own judgment, and you start to spiral and lack confidence as well. So I see myself as that person that, you know, yes, it can sort their business out, but I'm also helping them through it as well, because they've just got to that point where they can't see the wood for the trees. That's kind of, you
Mm.
know, where they
What,
are.
so how do you work with them? Where do you start to untangle, you know, that situation for them to get clarity, for them to like be convinced, okay, I'm not, you know, the way I'm working is not working and I need to stop doing certain things, or maybe I need
Mm.
to take a break. I don't know.
Yeah. So what I generally do, and it does depend on the client, I've got a system I go through with them. So it's almost like a morning spent together, where I'm asking them a lot of questions. I've got like a whole set of things that I use for sort of
Mhm.
the operational side, the back end of their business. So we're very strategic. We're looking at it very strategically, but they're downloading at the same time. And that will bring out so many things. And it's about listening to them as well. So when I start asking questions, for example, what have you got in process for that kind of area in your business, you can see light bulb moments going on as well. So they're starting to think, it's almost like they're starting to come back into their business and think, hold on a minute, in order for me to move forward and do what I want to do, I'm going to have to start sorting out what's going on in the back end to make it easier for me. So it could be the systems they've got in place, for example. You know, one person I went to work with recently, she built a team and she was on her knees, but she hadn't really got any systems in place. Nobody had suggested systems. And, you know, by introducing just a few simple things, we're not talking about expensive. These are free tools out in the, you know, internet that a lot of people use. It's about time as well. So we look at where we can save time, what processes we can put in place, what team members are doing what, if they have a team member. They're IT, their marketing, everything, the whole business aspect. We look with that's a strategic, that's like a download of what's going on. And then we start to unpick. And I've kind of got like a red, amber, yellow system, red, amber, green system where we start to think, right, that red one is where we really need to hone in on. And then obviously that's a discussion with the business owner as well. And normally they're saying, yeah, I really agree with you there. That's what we need to focus on. So it's about unpicking. And that's where we start to unpeel the layers. And then we can go back to that plan in 3 months' time, 6 months' time, see where we're at. But I'm teaching them how to unlayer each part of their business and almost start again and start building from the bottom up so that they can then move forward. Because I think you've got to step back to go forward again once you've got to that point.
And are they normally able to step back? And I'm asking because from my experience, also coaching experience, also observing myself, I know that we are very good at filling the gaps. And so let's say, speaking about AI now, okay. So let's say it used to take 1 hour to write a post. Let's say sometimes it's something completely different, depends on, on the post and whatever. But let's just say it's 1 hour. Now, let's say that same thing can be done in 10 minutes.
Mm.
Guess I am gonna just create a post it on social in 10 minutes and walk away from my laptop. No, I move to another task and then to another task and then to another task. Just because I did it faster doesn't mean I stopped working. Maybe I should. And I think it's in our heads. It's like, oh my God, I should be doing something.
Mm. Mm.
You know?
Yeah. Again, that's a mindset issue, isn't it? And I think that's only going to come with experience as you learn what needs to be done to actually clear your mind. And I do, so I'm starting to work a little bit more with human design as well, if people are interested in that element. And that can tell a lot of how you're designed to work as well. So for me, working with my human design, I realized that actually I am multifaceted. I am
What's your human design?
a manifesting generator, but my
You
line's is a six
same.
two, so I bring a lot of wisdom as well and experience. I'm meant to guide people and teach people, but that manifesting generator, if I'd known about that when I was 20, it would have. Well, I suppose I may not have lived the experiences that I've lived now. I don't know, but I thought there was something wrong with me because I could chop and change. I could,
Mhm.
one week I wanted to do this, and next week I wanted to do that. And my parents would be like, no, no, you've got to do, and you've got to build a career and you've got to stick with it. And then you feel guilty and all that
Mhm.
kind of thing. So actually, if we look at somebody's design and how they are actually built to work from the inwards, then it kind of just it can almost help them. I think if you can find something that, is a bit more inward, if that makes sense, for them to
Yeah.
understand, to say, well, look, if you look at this is the way let's work with how you're supposed to work rather than how you think you should work. So, for me, for example, I could do things a lot quicker using AI, and I do. And like you said, I'll move on to something else, but that's okay because that's the way I work. But likewise, I know I need to get up and move to bring in to actually bring in some brainwave and to have inspiration, if that makes sense. So I can't sit in my laptop all day because it doesn't work for me. I would just my
Well, exactly, and that's what I'm talking about, right? So instead of like for somebody who is already overworked,
mm,
right, and should really step away, instead the way our brain is trained is that okay, so I did this faster, so now I'll do another thing instead of
yeah.
maybe I should actually go spend some time with myself or my family, read a book, have a walk or whatever.
Mm.
So you know, like we, and you mentioned the, you know, your parents were telling you to go study. We are all like that, right? I mean,
Mm.
it's this
Mm.
get an education and those things.
Yeah,
Our society functions in a linear way,
yeah,
whereas nature does not.
yeah.
And
That's what grounds you. If you can get out in nature, and that's one of the big things that, I've spent time doing. And thank God I've got the dogs because they are the excuse. You have to do it anyway.
mhm,
Um, it really does. I mean, that's when I get all my inspiration. I've learned to send myself voice notes. I can't get inspiration just sat at my desk. That for
exactly.
me, I need to be out walking. So, and if that's how it's going to work for somebody else, then I will say, have you tried that? Let's see if we can try it. Anything to
Mhm.
get people's mindset shifted, but it's not a quick fix. And that's what people have got to understand. It
Yeah.
is very, you've got to want to change. Not, well, maybe not
It's
change.
almost like retraining yourself, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I remember at some point, I think it was a lockdown, right? And I'm like, everybody's saying that you've got so much time, you so let's meditate. And I actually, this memory on Facebook popped the other day, and I'm like, and the post was about now all you people telling how you contemplate, meditate, go for a walk, blah, 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 blah. I'll see how you're gonna come out after this, you know, how you're gonna be better after spending all this time with yourself. Whereas for me was, my daughter was 3.5. It was the
Mm,
busiest time ever. And it
mm.
was like, I was really, and actually I could probably say that word, suffering, like really freaking
I was going
dying
to say,
inside.
so when you read
I
that,
was suffering and
yeah.
I was full. But what happened was, right? What happened was like, okay, I said, okay, 2 hours a day. Can I spend 2 hours a day working on my business? Okay, let me just do 2 hours a day. At that stage, I was so tired, I could not fathom telling myself, just grind as much as you can or whatever. 2 hours. Guess what? I used to manage to do so much in those 2 hours.
Mm, mm,
I was actually restricted by the circumstances, and guess what? It worked.
mm,
So maybe, and that's, I guess, one of those solutions. Okay, give yourself a restriction,
mm, mm.
you know,
Exactly.
and see what
Well,
happens.
that
Then you
was that was yeah.
setting priorities differently. Okay, what are the most productive? What are the most important? What are the most
Mm,
income producing activities I can do?
mm. Exactly. But the thing is, there's so much out there that makes you feel, because I was going to say, how did that make you feel when you were listening to this, that you should do this, you should do that, and you're like screaming inside. I just don't agree with that because everybody's different and it's about finding what works for you. And when I was stripping back, and must have been just a subconscious decision. I don't know. Nobody told me. I had to work it out for myself. But this is where I think, because I've worked out so much that I help other people. But I told myself, right, I'm not going to be. I don't have meetings on a Friday. That Friday's now non-negotiable. It's not like I'm not working, but I've stopped having meetings on a Friday. And do you know, it was that to me was such a sense of freedom that even though I am working, I'm not actually having client meetings. And even now, if a client says to me, "Oh, well, I can't do that. Can you do Friday?" I'm like, "No, I don't tell them why. It's a non-negotiable for me now." But it's something you've got to keep going at because I could have
Mm,
easily slip back into the old way.
exactly. So set your freaking calendar up the way
Yeah, it's blocked. Mine is
it
blocked.
forces you. Yes,
Yeah,
if nothing
yeah.
else is possible. And my Fridays, usually there's no meetings. If I do agree to have a meeting, it's usually something that I can frame as fun.
Yeah, so I might go and have a coffee with a business friend in town.
Call
That's slightly
exactly.
different.
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah,
But
yeah,
that's what
same.
and when we talk about strategy, it's such a big subject. And that to me is still strategy because you're learning to, work differently. So there's a whole, for me, it's such a big word. I mean, that's why I haven't really come up with an actual name for what I do.
For me, it's model at the moment, and I do need to talk about methods and use the word strategy because that's what people pick on. But you mentioned the linear growth in our society, and guess what? Even in sales, there's there's quantum leaps, there's leaps. It doesn't have to be linear.
Mm,
Everyone is, and I'm so passionate about this topic because, and kind of feeds into what we are talking about, because guess what? I think especially for the few number of years, right? Most entrepreneurs spend most of their time trying to get clients.
mm,
It's like literally like 90% of their time is probably it's creating visibility, blah, 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 creating clients. And working on that in a linear way, it needs to compound. You need to put yourself out there for a year or two, then have a brand, and da, 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 da. Guess what? Even that is not true.
no, because I'll tell you what, yeah, because I can, again, thinking back to when I first thought, I've had a LinkedIn account for years and years and years and years, but I've never really used it. And I thought, "Oh, better start using it." So of course you go along to the master classes, you start picking up information. And I'm like a sponge, so I'll take on a lot of stuff.
Hmm.
And then you start doing it because you think that's the way you should do it. It's like you've got to do this and you've got to do that and you've got to do that. And it's all, and you start to end up feeling really stressed because you think, oh God, I haven't done that yet because they told me I've got to do it and I should do it. And it's not going to work because I've done it wrong. And it's no. And that's the bit that really, I think we need to move away from in my mind. There's
I think I worked out a filter for think any strategies, methods, any tactics, and it kind of it's painful to me watching, like I'm in this female group on Facebook, and it's generally it's really cool. I like it, but I also get a lot of information and insights into the world of entrepreneurs,
yeah, yeah,
women
yeah, yeah.
entrepreneurs. And when every time I see somebody's looking for a TikTok coach or I just cannot, I can't, it annoys me so much because it's yet another thing to pile on top of everything else that you're doing. And they are thinking it's gonna expand them. No, it's
It's going to
shrinking.
create even more
It's
confusion.
shrinking. And here's and my filter is if nothing else, ask yourself, does this new thing I want to learn, or is this thing that I'm using, did it exist like 10 years ago, 50 years ago, 100 years ago? Because I say it's not about what's working now, it's about what's working always.
Mm.
This is when we go back to nature's laws and universal laws,
Yeah,
and they work.
yeah,
And so why not align directly with them,
yeah,
and then have this new, this not new, this great foundation, and
yeah,
then pick and choose and whatever
yeah,
what makes your soul, sing,
yeah,
uh,
yeah,
right?
exactly. Because a TikTok, if you're looking for a TikTok coach, how do you know they're not all going to teach the same thing? So how do you know? I don't know. I'm
And I
saying,
mean, like, what is happening with TikTok
I
or
don't
any
even,
attack? Like, okay, so you don't know. So you know that TikTok was banned.
yeah,
Trump,
yeah,
I don't know.
States.
It
Yeah.
was banned a couple of months ago. Then it got unbanned. Now it's this grace period of 90 days or something. So basically, but it's sort of like shaky, and people are still looking for a TikTok coach. Come on now. Like, honestly, I this one thing just made me, seeing this post, someone asking, was like, same with like you and I, we talk about understanding yourself again, right? Human nature. It has always been around. So that's what we're trying, like when we say
Yeah,
unpeel what's
exactly.
not
You go
you.
back to the olden day, really olden days. How did we survive? We were very, very simple, weren't we? And as the years have gone by, we've added more and more and more onto it, and it's just overload, I think. I mean, I'm a great believer in technology and the way it can help, etc. But there are such negative to it as well. And what I have noticed is we are craving human connection more as well. There's, more and more clients of mine are sort of looking to maybe move. They've been always in the online space, but they're now looking to bring in more face-to-face stuff, because that's what they're craving, because it just is that connection, isn't there? It's like if you're seeing people through Zoom or that kind of thing, it feels almost automated in a way, doesn't it? Whereas if you're with humans in the same room, there's nothing that accounts for that, I think.
Mm.
We are treading in a really we are in a challenging time, I think, and you know, we like you say, it's not linear.
No, it doesn't need to be linear.
No.
That's the thing. It took a while for me to discover this,
Mm,
you
mm,
know, but when I did, I knew it's the truth.
mm. Yeah, and it's got to come, as I said, nobody can teach you that. It's got to come from within. We learn that as we go through and through making mistakes, everything. And nobody's perfect. And that's what I say to people. People are always there trying to look perfect, but nobody is. We've
No
all
one
got
is.
demons.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
Mm,
The perfection, the it I guess, right? It comes from your childhood and comes from
absolutely. It's all the condition.
conditioning, it comes
Mm,
from fears.
mm,
So it's a tough one to deal with. And
mm.
like a lot of people don't even, I believe that many people don't understand they are perfectionists. They do,
No.
for them, it's just the way it needs to be.
Mm, mm. That's very true. And I'm a great believer in the flow and being fluid. And, so what if you put something out there that's slightly, you know, does it really matter? People's lives move so quickly nowadays that actually what they see 5 minutes ago, they've forgotten. So it doesn't matter. Um,
I know, but tell that to, I mean, you know, you sit in your bubble
mm,
and you think your bubble is the whole world and everything you do is so important,
mm, mm.
and everybody's watching you.
No, but they're
You
not.
know,
That's
that's-
that, you go to the gym, people think, oh, they're watching me. No, they're not watching you. They're actually more concerned with what they're doing. They're not looking at you thinking, oh God, what's she doing?
I, it's actually, I remembered something just yesterday. I was talking to my daughter's teacher, and so this year they had swimming classes, right? And so the last class took place, I think, last week, right? And apparently, so my daughter apparently and a few other classmates were afraid to go to the big pool, swimming pool, right? To do whatever they needed to do there. So they were forced to stand, the whole class to stand. They were not allowed to sit, whatever. So first of all, it's basically on the borderline with bullying, that in my opinion, but also, like, I was asking this question, I was saying to the teacher, so, it's so other people are the swimming teachers, whatever, but I was talking to her class teacher, right? And I was saying, so, like, does everyone not have the ability to swim? Like, every single human being can actually swim, technically speaking,
Mm,
right? So why are these trainers preventing the kids from learning how to swim by scaring, by treating them that way?
mm,
It's purely the mindset. It's purely
mm,
down to what's going on in the kid's head. Every
mm,
single human being is technically capable of
mm,
swimming, isn't
mm,
it?
mm. Well, I mean, again, you like a dog. As soon as a dog goes into water, it swims. They haven't
Yeah.
been taught how to swim. It's a natural thing because they don't have the conditioning,
They
do they?
exactly right. So now, so first of all these kids came to these swimming classes with their own pre-existing whatever is going
Mm.
on. Maybe somebody got scared, maybe somebody was drowning at I don't know, whatever.
It's come from the parents
But
because we're
then,
naturally worried.
then they are being treated as these machines
Mm,
that technically somehow need to learn. Nobody needs to learn how to swim if everything is right in their head.
mm, mm.
You
Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head there.
know,
It's
yeah,
about
and
what's going on inside.
right, and I think it's the same with so many other things, not just swimming. We naturally
Mm,
can do so many, like we are limitless naturally,
mm, mm.
right?
Yeah, yeah. When you think about it, we're energy, aren't we, at the end of the day? So it's I think I do think having gone through life, I've got to my age now, and there is so much conditioning as you go through, and it starts from a very, very early age, doesn't it? And the fear, when I think back, so I won't go into a lift. I don't like this. I feel claustrophobic. And do you know where I think that stemmed from? Watching my sister, who was probably 3 at the time, in an airport, because she was always one of those kids that went off and did stuff on her own, get into a lift, push a button, and everybody around blind panic because obviously she went off on a different floor, and it sinks in, doesn't it? And you think, oh my God, that's dangerous. And she's stuck.
I know.
Yeah, so it doesn't take much for it to be
I
put in
had,
there.
right, when my daughter was a toddler, again, daughter, but you learn so much from your children, right?
Mm.
So when my daughter was a toddler, and so we had neighbors who were also Lithuanians when we lived in Ireland, the two other neighbors, and their kids were slightly bigger. They were slightly, they could walk slightly better. And my daughter was still very wobbly, and we go for a walk, and every time she wobbles, my two neighbors start jumping.
Yeah.
And I'm not jumping, right? And I'm like, I'm telling them, stop doing it. You're
Mm.
gonna train my daughter that falling is scary, that
Yeah,
falling
yeah,
is wrong, that,
yeah.
stop doing, let her fall. Nothing ever happened
Mm. Mm.
if they did.
Yeah.
you know and my daughter was so like people used to be surprised how she falls over, stands up and keeps running, instead
Mm.
of crying, because she
Mm.
was not trained to be afraid of it
Mm. Mm.
you know
And they do
so
say the first 7 years of life is where you learn by trial and error, don't they? And I think if, in a way, if not that we'll ever go back to that, but if we can let those children just learn by that trial and error without people stepping in all the time, it's not going to, I can't ever imagine that happening. But you imagine what mindsets are going to come through in years to come if that was allowed.
yeah, I think I was making a post, we do this to our kids, and then our kids are gonna end up in some coaching container dealing with these
Yeah,
traumas
yeah,
traumas that we imposed on
yeah,
them, you
yeah.
know?
Yeah, well, that's it, isn't it? And as parents, we've got really, really difficult jobs now bringing up our kids.
Mm,
And I've always been one of those that didn't want to like mollycoddle. So if they're crying, it's kind of like, oh, I've never been like, oh, mollycoddling them. I just let them, if they're going to have a tantrum in a supermarket, then let them. I just
mm,
used to walk away from mine, and they've got to learn. They follow me. I'm not going to stand there and say, oh, do you want sweet teas just to, pacify them? That's not what I've been about. And I guess that's probably why I probably treat my people I work with like that as well.
well,
I don't want to pacify
when you
them.
think about it, they are so cushioned these days,
Yeah,
these babies and these kids with all the, devices and all the preps and
Mm.
unimaginable things. I just cannot. I was looking when I was looking at all that stuff. I was like, what is going on? Like,
Yeah,
what are
yeah,
you doing with all these walkers and the I don't know, all that stuff, you
yeah,
know,
yeah,
we did minimum of that. So,
yeah, yeah.
and
No,
then everybody's scared of everything. Oh my God. So maybe that's it. Maybe back to the point we were making. We
yeah.
digress, we
Yeah,
digress.
we have digressed, but I think there's a reason for that, isn't there? Because
Well,
it's how we've evolved, and it is, it makes no difference whether you're parents or whatever. It's how you are. It goes back to how you're brought up, you're conditioned, and everything else that sits in there. And then you start to run a business, and you get even more conditioned because you're reading too much.
mm.
You're joining this, you're joining that, and your head is like a sponge, isn't it? It just takes on more and more and more.
Especially when you don't know and you can't
Yeah.
make a judgment by yourself,
Mm.
right?
And panic sets in. That's what I do
Yeah.
see in
And
clients. They're
and
panicked.
I right, and you touched on something important as well, panic, and sometimes yes, it's survival. Yes, yes,
Mm.
it is sometimes, very
But
often.
if you don't stop, pause, and take a breath, it's that panic. It's just going to
And
take
I
over.
want everyone to hear
Your brain
this.
can't function.
Yeah, I want everyone, regardless of, and I know there are so many women, men as well, you know,
Mm,
out there fighting for survival, trying to make an income, a living, you know, what am I gonna put on the dinner table kind of situation.
mm,
And yes, 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 that is very, very real.
mm,
And it might sound like a huge contradiction, you know, I'm fighting for survival, but now you're telling me to pause, but that's
mm.
unfortunately or fortunately, that's how it works.
Well, if you think about that fight or flight situation, isn't it? I mean, if you've gone into panic mode, you can't think properly. Your body goes,
Yeah,
it
exactly.
builds up adrenaline, and you think, and it brings in all the health aspects as well. It just has a huge knock-on effect. So
Exactly.
if you don't pause and sit yourself back and reset, you're not going to have a business because your health will suffer, everything. So
Yeah,
it's a yeah,
yeah,
a big thing. And as I said, I see it a lot.
yeah. Well
And
said.
I've been through
Okay.
it. So that's the key. So
Yeah, okay. So for somebody, you know, listening, if they are in a situation where they think it's kind of hopeless, they are tired, they're in survival, they feel stuck, or simply they feel they're not where they should be by now, what could you say could be one shift they could make immediately today? Small shift.
yeah, I think it's a tricky one really, because I said it's a combination of a lot of things, but I would really think about why you're running your business. Why did you start your business? Think of your sole purpose of why you started
Mm,
it, and not strip it back, but go back to that. If it was freedom, then bring in something that's going to give you an element of freedom in the day. If it was money, then you're going to probably have to bring in something like, I don't know, if it's not working doing what you're doing, you may need to bring in ads or something like that. But there are ways and means around it. For me, I had to go inward, but that is quite a not a long journey. It can be quite quick because if you use AI now, it can be, I would say to somebody, if they really are interested in finding out what they are designed, how they are designed, is to look at their human design actually. That would be, I would get a chart which is free. This is what I would do if you really are stuck, because you don't need to learn too much to get the outline of it. Download your chart, stick it into ChatGPT, and ask what you're running your business for, the purpose of your business,
mm,
and how can you bring some freedom
that's
back.
cool.
I
Mm-hmm.
would couple of prompts. I mean, there's a few more I could probably come up with, but generally that would be the way, because that's how you're designed. if you really believe in operating from inside, then that for
That's
me is
cool.
work.
Yeah, yeah, very good. Okay, so listen. So I ask three bliss questions. Every guest gets three questions. Um, First, and if you could, if you want to talk about who you help and where they can find you. So let's do that first.
So I think we've covered it on this program actually.
Where,
And again,
yeah.
I am evolving, but I'm very much here. I feel for women. I'm not excluding men, but they've got to be more in the energy where they're in flow, not the hustle masculine energy, um, who are stuck, who are overwhelmed, who have got to that point in their business where they don't know which way to turn. So I'm here to unpick it all and guide them.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good. And where can they
Whatever
find
you
you?
kind of
Yeah,
wherever
where
we
can,
we'll find what it is that you're stuck.
okay.
It's not, it's not going to be a quick fix thing, but even if it's just for 1 or 2 sessions, we can pinpoint something.
I think, well, just sometimes just talking to somebody
Well, exactly, a
and just
download.
getting permission to stop doing what you are doing at the moment. It can be such huge help, isn't
Yeah.
it?
So in an hour with somebody, we can, I ask such probing questions in that hour that I don't do much talking. It's them, and
Yeah.
they download and they can talk. And it quite often, when you're talking and talking things through, it can reveal things that you didn't realize before because you're just in firefighting mode. So that's stopping and just talking. And whilst some people think, oh, I don't need to do that, I need to push, I need to do this, I need to do that, actually, until you stop and download what it is,
Mm.
just talk, you can't move forward.
Yeah, very cool. So where can they connect with you?
So they can connect with me on LinkedIn at the moment, Heather Vincent. My business is called Sage Strategy. Um, I'm kind of thinking about bringing in Facebook, but that's for future. Or I've got a website again that's going to be evolving, but at the moment it's called www.hvobm.com. But
Yeah, I'll put the links in
there's
the show
going to be
notes.
a change to that, but
Mm.
that's where you can contact me for the time being.
Cool, cool. Okay, yeah, I'll put all the links in the show notes. Everyone can find them. So the questions. So the first one is, what change would you like to see in the world?
Oh gosh. Do you know, the biggest change I would like to see is to stop the hustle, stop pushing the
Mm,
masculine energy that of old, the old. So I've gone through that in corporate, and you burn out the shoulds that you push and push and push. So I'd like to stop that.
yes, let's see what's gonna happen with AI on board because
I think that
it
will
kind
help.
of gives us the opportunity to stop, but let's see if people are not gonna start filling those gaps that we talked about with
Yeah,
even more
yeah.
work. I don't know, right? Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. Okay, the next question is, what impact would you like to create personally?
So I see myself as whilst I'm doing what I'm doing, I really feel that I'm here to guide and teach people. And for me, I would like to impact the more of a wider collective of people, not just one-on-one. So I see myself utilizing something like AI, for example, and bringing in everything we've discussed really into some kind of tool for business users. And that's an impact that I would like to make on people's lives. So it's not just one person I'm with, it's for many people, because
Mhm.
the bigger impact I can make on people's lives will help then make the impact on other people's lives, and it helps
Absolutely.
everyone.
Yeah.
I'm not in this for me. I do a lot of stuff where I talk to people for free. Um, I mean, a bit like what you're doing here on your podcast. I mean, when it's kind of a two-way thing, and I believe the biggest impact you can make is for the collective.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Okay, the last one is, what does from grind to grace mean to you?
Oh, again, it's really similar to what we've been talking about. For me, grind. Oh, I hate that word. Hey, it's just like, for me, that sums up where you're pushing, hustling, constant treadmill of life, everything, to moving into a fluid flow, calm way of doing things.
Yeah,
That's the adjectives I think I could use.
that is the idea. Absolutely.
Grinding, oh my goodness, yeah.
Yeah, that is the idea. And, first of all, it's easier. Secondly, it also brings better results.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I that is definitely.
Yeah, very cool.
It
Okay,
brings you
so
inner happiness as well. If you're
yeah,
happy inside.
I mean, what can you create if you're not happy?
Mm,
Like, honestly.
mm,
I mean, you can address problems, daily problems, but in terms of creating something big.
mm, yeah. You haven't got the headspace for it if you're
Mm,
grinding.
yeah, okay. Thank you so much. It
Thank
was
you.
so cool.
That was brilliant.
Yeah, thanks
It's
for,
allowed me to talk about stuff that you can't write about very easily because it's so emotive, and yeah, no, it's really good.
yeah, very cool. So thank you so much. Appreciate you. And the one listening, I mean, I always say this, I am sure you got lots of value. So I'm asking you to follow and send this to anyone you think might benefit from this, all
Mm,
the wisdom
mm.
Heather just shared, all the nuggets. Let's actually spread this mission.
Yeah,
We are
let's
on
spread
a
it. Yeah,
mission.
yeah. I mean, we're not going to go back into hippie world, spread the love, but it is about sharing what we can
Hippies
do.
were right.
Well, possibly
Hippies
well,
were
they had freedom,
right.
didn't they?
They
But it's spread the word. Let's get it out there, and
were.
people will evolve in their own time. And I think this year is going to see a big shift in that.
Yeah, hippies
My
were up to
gut.
something, and then the society went, sidetracked. You know?
Yeah.
Right. Oh, well, not completely. So anyway, yeah, thank you. Thank you for listening, for tuning in, and I'll talk to you again next week.
Thank